3D printing and metal are both awesome, but unless you have tens of thousands of dollars to shell out for an industrial SLS printer, most of us still can't print directly in metal. Today, I'm going to show you how you can use your standard SLA printer, like this one, which costs less than $200, to turn your projects into metal. The basic premise here is that we're going to print our model in a special resin that has wax particles suspended in it, and from there we can treat it just like the wax used in lost wax casting, which we'll touch on later. The resin I'm using is Soriatec Cast Purple, which is good stuff, but unfortunately the castable resin is still much more finicky than standard resins, so there's some extra steps we have to go through. The first step here is just like any other print. We have to prepare our model in the slicer. I'm using Chikubox, and one thing that's really nice about the Soriatec resins is that they have downloadable profiles for all of their resins available on their website. When I switch over to the casting resin here, you'll notice that the biggest difference in the settings is a much longer exposure time of 5.5 seconds per layer. Once you have that profile set, I'll tell you the most important part of the setup here. Use heavy supports. On standard prints, I usually prefer light supports, but the casting resin is heavier, and if you don't have appropriately strong supports, your model will fall off the build plate and your print will fail. Otherwise, you're good to send it over the printer, and now we wait. Normally I would just wash off the extra resin in a bath of alcohol, but the user manual is adamant that you keep your model away from any extra moisture. So before washing it, I'm using a soft, dry paintbrush to wipe away as much of the extra resin as I can. After that, I will rinse off the extra resin with alcohol like normal, but the user manual has two other stipulations. Don't put it in the alcohol for longer than 30 seconds, and once you take it out of the alcohol, blow dry it. Don't let it air dry. The idea there is that too much exposure to the alcohol will introduce moisture into your piece, which can interfere with the casting process later. Now that our model is clean, we're ready to cure it, which once again requires some extra care when using this castable resin. Normally, when I'm working with conventional resins, I'll put my prints in a vat of water in the curing station, which diffuses the UV light and speeds up the curing. The castable resin takes an extra long time to cure, so it would be ideal to do the same thing here, but of course it's not that easy, since we're still trying to keep our prints from absorbing any moisture. One way to get around this is to cure your parts in glycerin. This will give us all the benefits of curing in water, but won't allow our pieces to absorb any of that extra moisture. Glycerin is pretty accessible. I got this small bottle in the makeup aisle at CVS for $8, and you can reuse it to cure more prints in the future, so it's relatively inexpensive in the long run. Even with the glycerin to speed up our cure time, this resin will still take a while to fully cure. I've had success curing it for 10 minutes, but if you have larger pieces, some people cure for up to 30 minutes. At this point, our pieces are just about ready to go. We just have to clean the glycerin off. Just like the extra resin earlier, we can use a clean paintbrush to wipe off most of the goop, and then whatever's left can get rinsed off in the alcohol bath, remembering to keep your pieces in for less than 30 seconds and to blow dry it afterwards. After all of our hard work, we're finally ready to cast. Casting is a huge topic that we don't have time to get into, but this castable resin behaves the same way as the wax used in lost wax casting, which I'll link some resources about in the description. I have access to a nice casting setup at school, which I unfortunately can't show you because tripods, camera people, and GoPros all make the process a bit more dangerous in a busy studio. But if you don't have the resources to cast yourself, you can send the models you've made off to a casting house, who will do the casting for you and send back a metal copy of your design. Formlabs is another company that makes a castable resin similar to this Soriatec stuff that we've been using, and they have this helpful guide of casting houses that have worked with their product, which is a good resource for finding the right one near you.